to buying. The happy result will be that the innovations will make everyone enormously better off by 3,000%, especially the formerly poor, your ancestors and mine. You've heard a lot of dismal chatter since the Great Recession of 2008. As it, the most recent of the successively trademarked final crises of capitalism, recedes into memory, we do well to remind ourselves that median weekly real earning of wage and salary workers is setting all-time highs every time the data are reported, and is, the COVID-19 dip aside, about 10% above where it was at the depths of the Great Recession, and is well above its recent nadir in the second quarter of 2014. You might recoil at the notion that we live in a blessed age. After all, hundreds of millions of people around the world remain in dire poverty. The United States government is separating immigrant children from their parents, holding them in cages on the economically silly and morally obnoxious notion that by doing so they are somehow making America great again. We aren't saying there aren't serious problems. We are saying that things have gotten better, are getting better, and will continue to get better for the vast majority of humanity and in a few generations for everyone on the planet, as long as we keep our ethical wits about us and opt for true liberalism. Think it possible that the nonstop torrent of bad news filling your newspapers and e-readers and social media timelines is not giving you the complete story. Be wary, for example, of headlines about the exploits of Florida Man, a popular meme spawned by a loose public records law in the Sunshine State. It makes it exceptionally easy to write stories with headlines like, Florida Man arrested for burglarizing cars in jail parking lot moments after being released, and Florida Man charged with impersonating officer for McDonald's discount. There are roughly 10.5 million actual Florida men. If only 0.01% of them are idiotic criminals, it's still enough for about 3 outrageous Florida Man stories every day for a year. We admit that even in an innovation-embracing, bourgeois-dealing society, an occasional evil nitwit will show up and an occasional paragon of virtue will slip through the cracks into a life of destitution or just plain bad luck. We are claiming, on the basis of overwhelming evidence, that the bourgeois deal has made the cracks a lot smaller. Long may it rain. So we beseech you, dear listener, don't let the much larger positive story get lost amid the vivid and rare counterexamples or even the miseries of mishandled plagues. On a long view, even since 2008 and since 1960 or 1900 or 1800, the economic world has leapt far, far beyond the zero-sum game of olden days. You need to stop thinking zero-sum. A liberal world is stunningly positive-sum. The hands-off ideology of liberalism has allowed an invisible hand to push forward any society that permits it to work, not toward capitalism, a silly word as we'll show, but toward what we call innovism. The evidence is overwhelming that liberty, not coercion by a private master or a public state, inspires people to continuous betterment. For the poorest. The political side of innovism, we note, is liberalism. We use the word, you see, not in its strange U.S. sense of bigger and bigger government. Such a liberalism usually gets the economy wrong and often enough slips into tyranny. Look at the misuse of the FBI and the IRS and ICE, the Palmer raids and the fugitive slave laws. Nor do we use the word in its even stranger Latin American sense of suppressing the people with military tyranny, which likewise usually gets the economy wrong and is tyranny already. There's something in the water of the Western Hemisphere. We use the honored L word in its original and international sense of no involuntary masters. No masters over slaves, no husbands over wives, no kings or priests or politicians over citizens. On the contrary, you are permitted to say, take this job and shove it, or take this marriage and shove it, or take this